Want entertainment designed just for you? Then check out customizable streaming TV from Xfinity. It makes your life simple, easy, awesome.
Xfinity gives you customizable streaming TV options. Enjoy the most free shows anywhere on any device, and even access your streaming apps right on your TV with X1. Go to Xfinity.com, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today to learn more. Restrictions apply.
He's a revolution, Jimmy. The American dream is just that. Just a dream. War is a continuation of politics, only by other means. Politics is a continuation of economics by other means. This is our bank. This is our war. And this is our plan of attack.
Banks have become an essential threat to our democracy. So consider this justice.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported radio station on the internet. Please help support this station so this battle can continue forward. Revolution Radio! The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
There's a theory advanced that the universe is a living giant being, and that we, as human beings, made in its image, are miniature universes in ourselves, containing millions of corpuscles. The components of each corpuscle imagine themselves to be in a complete world of their own.
Please join T.J. Morris as she breaks topics on cosmology, metaphysics, conspiracy theories, science, theology, ufology, and psychic awakening. Prepare to have your conscious go cosmic.
Hello, everybody. I think we're live. Hi.
Yeah, you're live.
This is Janet. Yeah, sorry. This is Janet Care Lessin. On the Cosmos Connection. Excuse me, on Revolution Radio. And today, our host, Teresa J. Morris, we're waiting for her. And I'm Janet Care Lessin, like I said. That's some background music or noises. Not sure what that's about. That's interesting. Let me see if I can.
Yours are too loud. You turn them down a little bit.
Mine's too loud. Okay. I gotta see if I can find where to do that. Here it is. Okay. Oh, okay. Robert, can you turn your speaker down a little bit? We're getting feedback. Anyway, here is Thomas Becker. That's who you just heard. And we're going to see if we can figure out how to get rid of the feedback. And today we have Robert Snow. He's coming to us from the UK. I'm not sure where he's at in the UK. And he's had interest in paranormal for many years. And his appetite for the unexplained mysterious was gained from his late grandfather, Richard Clay, medical practitioner in Wiltshire. Dr. Clay had several paranormal experiences himself, and being a very methodical mind, he recorded them on paper as soon as possible after the incident. He also recorded the experiences of his patients that were related to them. And Robert is now the owner of Dr. Clay's archives, having inherited them from his grandfather who died in the 70s. He's always adding to them himself. Robert was until recently the General Secretary of the Ghost Club, the oldest paranormal research organization in the world, which was founded in 1862, a long time ago. Robert always looks at reports of supernatural happenings objectively and says that from his experience, 90% of so-called paranormal activity can be explained naturally through careful and objective investigation. However, there are about 10% of these incidents that seem to defy all investigation and just can't be explained. And it's this 10% that interests Robert. And Robert lives in an old building that is over 250 years old in an isolated village in Dorset in the southwest of England. He says, unfortunately, there are no ghosts in his home, much to his disappointment. Or if there are, they have not made the choice to go to them. We can talk about that. And he would love to receive, most pleased to receive reports of paranormal activity and happenings to add to his now considerable archive. So his new book is called Strange Experiences. And you can read about that, see some pictures on aquariumradio.com. Okay, I guess we did not find TJ, so we'll introduce Mad Painter, Thomas Becker, is going to help me out today. Thomas, would you like to say hi?
Howdy. Robert, you need to mute when you're not talking. We're getting too much feedback.
There we go.
There we go. Nope. Still there. He ain't muted. Can you even hear Robert?
Okay, we'll bring on Robert. He can talk. Maybe it won't be so bad.
I don't think he's even hearing us.
Robert, are you not hearing us? Okay.
Let me hang him up and call him back.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on there. It was like we were Mickey Mousing.
We were having Mickey Mouse time, yes. Let's see if we can get Robert on. He sounds better, hopefully.
Now can we hear you?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you now.
We can hear you. Yes, wonderful. Okay, I don't know if you heard the introduction, Robert, but you're on. If you want to tell us about yourself and your research and your book, take it away.
Yeah, well, I first became interested, as you mentioned, the paranormal. My late grandfather, Dr. Richard Clay, and he was a medical practitioner, and he lived in a village called Fovant in Wiltshire in the southwest of England. It's about 7 miles west of the city of Salisbury. And he had several paranormal experiences, which he recorded. He was a very methodical man, and as soon as possible, he recorded his experiences and put them in his archives. And also, he recorded experiences that some of his patients had related to him. Although his house was about a 500-year-old house, the old manor house at Fovant, I personally never experienced anything, although it was haunted. One of the most famous of his cases was of a prehistoric horseman, a Bronze Age horseman that actually was seen in what's called the Cranbourne Chase, which is part of Dorset. My grandfather saw it, and several other people have seen it, but it hasn't been seen for about 20 years, so I don't know.
How did he know it was Bronze Age? How did he make that determination?
Well, he was a keen amateur archaeologist, and
okay.
The thing is that this horseman disappeared. It's all mentioned in my book, but it disappeared at a certain burial mound, prehistoric burial mound. And apparently that mound had been excavated several years before, and they found the bones of a Bronze Age horseman and his horse. He had a bronze axe buried with him, a bronze axe head. But as I said, he had several other interesting experiences. But that's why I became interested in the paranormal. But
that's fascinating. Let me just ask you about the horseman. Did anybody do any kind of like ritual or further burial? What did they do with his remains?
Well, he was buried in a burial mound, which is a sort of lump in the ground, a mound of earth. And it was actually excavated several years before my grandfather saw it. And they found inside the remains of a horse, which is very unusual, and the horseman, and a bronze axe head.
Right, and so he stopped coming around. Was it after that? After he was excavated?
Well,
he
was actually, the mound was excavated in the early 1800s by a man named Colt Hoare. And my grandfather saw it in, I think it was about 1926. But several people had seen it before him and since. But the last apparition was about 20 years ago. About 1998, I think that was the last time it was seen.
Okay, so I was just trying to make a correlation that maybe something happened, that the spirit of the bronze horseman just moved on to the other realms. But it's just a mystery. Okay, so continue your story.
Well, I've had several experiences myself, which are mentioned in my book. And my grandfather's archives, I'm continually adding to them, and I've now got several thousand reports. Some of the reports I've copied from the internet, copied and pasted into Word documents. I mean, there is a lot of rubbish on the internet, as you no doubt know, but there's also a lot of very interesting stuff.
Right. So I want to ask two things. You said that you had several experiences. Can you describe your experiences?
Well, yes, they're mentioned in my book. One of them was when I was in the army. I was in the army for about 15 years. And then I had a medical discharge because I broke my spine. And I've since had surgery. My X-ray looks a bit like a Meccano creation, a lot of stuff.
Wow.
But I was walking on patrol in a deserted army camp made out of wooden huts called Bailou Barracks. And it was a moonlit night, cold and frosty. And I was with a colleague, and we were walking down the main road of this. Although it was disused and virtually completely derelict, it still had to be patrolled at night. And I was on guard duty. At any rate, we were walking down the road, and we saw in the moonlight what looked like a soldier walking towards us, and we could hear the footsteps. And this person, this dapper or this soldier, turned it towards one of the huts, and it was an area between two huts. At any rate, we ran after him, and when we got there was to where he walked, there was no one there, and there was nowhere he could have hidden. Another time I was on guard duty, and my colleague and I were on the edge of the parade ground. It was a moonlit night, and we both heard the sound of soldiers marching across the parade ground. You hear the clunk, clunk, clunk of their hobnail boots.
Wow.
It was rather eerie.
Now, did they appear solid, or were they kind of transparent?
We couldn't see them, we just heard them.
Okay, the one you saw, was he solid or transparent?
He looked solid from what we could see.
Oh, wow.
Quite lifelike. But, I'm continually adding to my archives. If I find something that is plausible, I copy in a newspaper or something, I copy it, on my computer and put it into my archives. I've got quite a considerable, several thousand articles now, but there is one thing that really interests me, rather fascinated. I've read about, you probably heard of Skinwalker Ranch.
Yes. Okay, what attracts you to read about it? Go ahead.
Yeah, I believe it is or was owned by Robert Bigelow, who is, I believe, a very rich American businessman. And there's a report on a YouTube video by a reporter, George Knapp.
Yes.
You know of him, do you?
Oh yes, I've seen George at a conference. He's very well known, and heard of Robert Bigelow. Never met him, never saw him in person, and heard of the Skinwalker Ranch. So you want to tell our listeners a little bit about Skinwalker Ranch and why it stands out?
I believe it's very much out of bounds. There's terrific security there, but I believe all sorts of things have happened there. Apparition, UFOs, poltergeist activity, strange creatures, cattle mutilation, which is another very strange phenomenon, which we've had in this country as well. I believe cattle mutilation has taken place in many parts of the world. I don't know what the explanation is. I mean, a lot of people have theories like it could be aliens or secret government experiences. You have a lot of it in the States, don't you?
I don't know how how it's going now. I know there were periods when there was a lot of them. What about you, Thomas?
Yeah, they're not as common anymore as they used to be.
What do you think? Have you got any theories?
A lot of people believe that it had something to do with black ops. You want to control people, you control their food supply, and of course, cattle is one of our biggest suppliers of food here in the United States.
You mean government cover-up?
Yeah.
I think
that's one theory.
Politicians and governments have got a lot to blame for. A lot to answer for.
I've read about some genetic experiments from, I think this was in a book, not an interview I did, about contacting the abductee, and they took his semen or something, they put it in the cow. They do some genetic experiments. I guess the cows are, pretty compatible with humans in a lot of ways. So
yeah, some of them believe that they're artificial wombs for growing super soldiers.
Yeah, but they don't.
Yeah, that's a theory.
All the blood's drained out of them, I believe, and which is rather strange.
Yeah, the ones that have returned, somebody's taking the blood. They mutilate them. They take their udders and their jaws. It just seems very unexplainable, but it's not happening. It might have had something to do with when they were doing a lot of the hybrid children, which that seems to have slowed down as well. That slowed down too. So it seems to have some correlation with the hybrid program, but we don't know. We're not in the loop. They're not telling us.
I mean, I think governments and politicians have got a lot to answer for all over the world.
They do. I'm looking at your picture of your cat. Is that your cat?
No, it's one of a neighbour of mine. I took the picture. I put a plastic ladybird on its nose and then took a photo, and because it made the cat go cross-eyed.
That's an incredible picture. I knew there had to be a story behind it. Okay, so let's go back to, let's see, I took a note. I think your grandfather, he was a doctor, right? A medical doctor.
Yes, yes.
Did he ever report seeing people leaving their bodies when they die?
Not that I know of, no, because if he had, he would have recorded it in his archives. I mean, he was a keen amateur archaeologist, and everything he recorded very methodically. And I've got his some of his archaeological papers as well. And as soon as possible, he'd record something while it was still fresh in his mind. I don't think he ever saw anybody leaving their body.
Okay. He had theories about what was going on. You said he saw. Did he see hundreds of ghosts? 10 ghosts. What did he report about what he actually witnessed?
Not only ghosts, but a sort of telepathic experiences, and precognition.
Okay, let's do the telepathic experiences. Describe one or two that he recorded that stands out.
One of the particular experience I remember in his book, or in his archives, which is mentioned in the book, is he was out in the country, picnicking with somebody, with his wife, my grandmother, and he heard a phone ring, and he was miles away from a telephone, because these were the days before mobiles. Probably in the 40s or 50s that this happened. I can't remember exactly when. Heard this phone ring, and when he actually got home, he by the way, he made a note of when he heard that. When he got home, there was the gardener who used to take phone messages when he was out. He'd stay in the house. There was a message that a particular patient's husband had called at exactly the time my grandfather heard the phone ring.
Wow.
And he had a lot of experiences like that, sort of telepathic experiences.
Was there some relevance to that patient? Did they need help or something? Was it kind of high energy behind a call?
I think the person who called was desperately trying to get a hold of him, and was probably in a very emotional state.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I had a rather strange experience a few years ago. I can't remember the exact details now, but I've recorded it. I'm the same. If something happens, if I experience anything, I will record it as soon as possible while it's still fresh in my mind, and the details are clear in my head. I have a friend who is a civil engineer from Russia, and his name is Anatoly, and he was working on a big project, building project in the Philippines. And while he was out there, he contracted, I'm only giving you a rough outline of the incident because I can't remember clearly. It was some time ago, but I did record it the next day. While he was out there, he caught some tropical disease and had to go back to Moscow, where he lived, where his wife and family are. When he recovered, he went back to the Philippines, and he was knocked down by a car, as I found out, and seriously injured. any rate, one particular night, I woke up for some reason it was about 2:00 in the morning. It was a bright moon outside. The moonlight was shining through my bedroom window. The curtains were drawn back. And in the moonlight, I saw Anatoly, my friend, standing beside my bed, and I put on the bedside light, and he was still there, as lifelike as anyone. And Anatoly told me that he'd been knocked down by a car and sustained head injuries, which caused internal bleeding in his head. And he had an operation to relieve the pressure, and they obviously had to remove part of the skull. And the skull piece was put back afterwards and held in position with metal staples, which I believe they do now, don't they? I think.
Yeah.
At any rate, sure. He told me all these details, and then he just faded away. And I lay in bed, I was rather surprised. I didn't know whether it was just a very vivid dream. And I eventually went to sleep. And when I woke up in the morning, I thought I must have been dreaming. About 2 days later, his wife phoned me and told me that Anatoly had been injured, and that they'd had to remove part of his skull to relieve the pressure, the bleeding inside his head, and that it was held in position with metal staples, which rather surprised me. The next day, I received a call from Anatoly, who was then back in Moscow, and he told me that he had a dream and that he was standing by a bed in the moonlight, and I was lying in that bed, and he described my bedroom exactly. And he's never been to my house. I've been to stay with Anatoly in Russia. But it must be proof. That last phone call, it must be proof of out-of-body experience.
I've actually had that happen to me as well. I felt eyes on me, and I opened my eyes, and there was my cousin. This is when I was a child, and she's just standing at the foot of my bed. It's daylight. I didn't have to turn on the light. The sun had already come up, and she's just standing there staring at me. And she didn't say anything to me, and I didn't ask her any questions. I just sat there for a while, and it's like, it was freaking me out, so I just covered my head. And then she left. Then she left. So there's all kinds of stories about people astrally traveling to one another. I had a whole very elaborate interaction with a lover for like 3 years. And so that was very intense. The relationship didn't really last long in person, but it was like this spiritual relationship. So that's fascinating. So that happened to you, not your grandfather's.
Yeah, but
have you ever... Go ahead.
From my experience, a lot of people say they don't believe in ghosts, but I think they say that just for a fear of people making fun of them. Now, when I came out of the army, I worked for the government, the Inland Revenue, the tax department, and my boss was very friendly with a family whose name is Pinney, Pinney, and they lived in an ancient manor house in Dorset called Betterscombe Manor. Now, in the house is a human skull, And the legend is that if you ever anyone who takes it out will die. Now, it's a house that could be viewed by appointment because it's a Grade 1 listed historic building. And Michael Pinney, I got to know Michael Pinney through my boss. And I've been there many times for meals, and even I got to know him very well. But Michael Pinney told me that you get people to look around the house and they say, legend of the skull, a load of rubbish, I don't believe in it. And he said, hand them the skull and say, all right, if you don't believe it, take it out of the house, and nobody ever would. I think a lot of people say they don't believe in ghosts because they're afraid that people will make fun of them. But
yeah, but there's a lot of evidence that something's been going on, but people are always afraid of the ridicule factor, no matter what you're talking about. When you talk about paranormal,
yes, I mean,
what do you do about it?
There's no doubt about it. Ghosts do exist, and there's indisputable evidence that there is another life after this. I'm not a religious fanatic, but I am a Christian, and I go to church, but probably not as regularly as I should. But I believe in God. In fact, I know God exists. It's not a case I believe He exists. I know God exists, and there is another world, another sort of like another wavelength, another what shall I call it?
Dimension, vibratory frequency. Another realm is a good way of putting it. Oh, I believe that. What about you, Thomas? What do you believe about life after death? Is there any? What's your opinion? Uh-oh. You may have stepped away.
I'm sorry. My wife was talking to me.
Oh, the wife. Yes, I have that happen too. But what are your thoughts about where do we go when we die?
I believe we move on to another plane of existence. I believe what we see as ghosts are caught between the two planes for some reason. I have no clue why. They're stuck. They don't want to move on, or they got unfinished business. Who knows?
Right.
I think there is. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I grew up in a haunted house. So this is kind of my area. It seems there was like a portal between the dimensions there, because over the course of my childhood and early adulthood, I finally left when I was 18. But every once in a while I would come back and visit and stay over and stuff like that. Because it was just something I couldn't quite resolve in my psyche, that I was having so much contact. It was irritating. It was sometimes quite frightening. I had an entity walk right through me and my girlfriend when we were about 13, and that was really freaky. I ran out of the house and it was very cold. It's like, I don't want to go back in that house. So, I'm very curious. I think some people are open and receptive and psychic, and I've had ghosts communicate with me, and I will talk to them telepathically and say, why are you contacting me? Of all the people on this planet, you have to know somebody. You left people behind, but I'm not even related to you. Why are you talking to me? And over and over, when I would ask that question, they'd say, well, you can see us, and we can see that you can see us. So do you think something like that was going on with your grandfather? That he was psychic and that they could see him?
I don't really know. But with ghosts, there is one theory which some scientists adopt, and it's called the stone tape theory, where you get strong emotional things like murders or something take place, something becomes embedded in the fabric of a building or in the ground, and that certain people under certain conditions can get like a video replay. I don't know. I don't either believe or disbelieve. I don't know, but that is a theory that I've heard quite.
So often. That's called stone tape, like
yes.
TAPE or
yes.
Okay,
tape.
so the building or the stone or whatever becomes a recording mechanism. Is that what you're saying? And it records because of the strong emotions.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that our governments have been using that as well. I remember somebody talking either on the show or in person to me about how they can go, say there's two spies, they're meeting out in the forest, right? And they're standing by a rock, and so they can, the agents leave, and then the CIA or FBI comes in, and they can go up to the rock where they were standing or the tree or whatever, and pick up the recording of what they said.
Yeah. But another thing that's interesting is remote viewing.
Uh-huh.
Do you know what I mean?
I've done it, but tell me what you know about it.
Well, I with my work, I've done some research. It's a long story, which I won't bother you with, but I fell into it by accident, and I do some research for a Russian television station and go out there occasionally. And I'd like to say one thing. I know people are frightened, but when I go there, the Russians are some of the nicest people you could deal with, and I get virtually killed with kindness. But I do know that the Russians are, I think, very much ahead, or probably leaders in the world of paranormal research. There's a man, a researcher in Tomsk in Siberia, northern Russia, who I'm in contact with quite regularly. His name is Viktor Fefilov, and he doesn't speak English, but his son does speak English. So when we talk on Skype, it's a three-way conversations, and his son, Oleg, acts as an interpreter. But his particular interest is poltergeist phenomena. And
okay, so what does Victor think is going on with poltergeist? Because, well, first of all, could you, for our listeners who might not know, can you give a definition of what a poltergeist is, as opposed, in comparison to a ghost? What's the difference?
Poltergeist is something that is disruptive, throwing things around, that sort of thing. You must have heard, ghosts that throwing objects around and
right.
Moving furniture and things. Victor thinks that they have some intelligence. There is some intelligence behind these, but he doesn't know whether they're sort of spirits that are trapped on this earth and want to get away. But it's a fascinating subject.
Yeah. Well, I encountered a poltergeist once. So I had the ghosts, and the ghosts were pretty harmless. Some of them would, walk through you, turn on lights on and off, make sounds. I slept, for some reason, the parents gave me the master bedroom in the front of the house, but having grown up in that room, I know why, because there was an attic above the room, and things moved all nights, and the attic door had this very strong metal bolt, and just sometimes the bolt would be thrown open and the door thrown open, and you could hear things. And so anyway, so that was my normal life. There were different ghosts that showed up in the foot of my bed. I realized that one was my mother's mother. The piano played, all kinds of stuff. My little childhood. But when I was a teenager, there was a stairwell that went from my house was an 1840s Pennsylvania farmhouse, And so somebody had built a second floor onto the original farmhouse. So it was 2 stories. And it had 2 stairwells. And one in the back that went from the back kitchen to the bedroom up there. My entire childhood, it was closed and locked. And it had the little skeleton keys, right? And my mother said, children, don't you ever open that door. So when I was a teenager, my older siblings were gone, so we got a foster foster child. And she was my age, because I was kind of lonely. So I said, yes, we got a foster child. Well, she didn't obey. So she went downstairs when my parents weren't home, and she got that door open. And I was sleeping in because we had stayed up real late. It was like a Friday night in summers. We just stayed up real late. So I was sleeping in, and I heard her calling psychically. I don't know what, that's the only way I can explain it. It's like, it wasn't in my ears. And I ran down the stairs, and she was hiding in the bathroom. And I said, what's going on? And she said, turn around and look. And just like in the that Steven Spielberg movie called Poltergeist, which I saw many years later, there was this large kind of full mouth open, snarling, big teeth, drooling demon, for the lack of any other word, and everything in the room was flying in the air. It was just pots and pans. Anything was outside of or even some of the cupboards were open, and things were flying through the air. And I fell to the ground, and I tried to scream, but I don't think anything came out. I just was on the floor, aghast. And my mother, who was at church at the time, it was a Sunday morning, she told my dad, Bill, we're going home right now. And he just obeyed. He got the car, and he drove her home. And she ran into the room, and she took this energy somehow like a witch, and she just kind of pulled it in, and she shoved it back. She didn't actually physically touch it. It was like moving her arms, and shoved it back into the stairwell, and she closed the door. And she had put her dryer in front of it. She moved the dryer back in place, and then she had us come out, look at her, and she said, I told you, children, to never touch that door. I couldn't tell anybody that story this is the first time I've told it publicly.
And so really,
what could you do with it? Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have any brothers or sisters who's had experiences there?
Yes. I have an older brother who's 7 years older than I am. So let's see how old he's. I'm 64, so he's 71 now, I think. And I have a 69-year-old sister. And we never talked about any of this when we were growing up. But when we were in our late 30s and early 40s, we finally were back in the home we grew up in. And both our parents were in the hospital. One had a heart attack, one had a stroke. We had all come home to the family we were raised in. And we were just sitting on the floor because, the paramedics had been there, and they left all kinds of things, the ticker tape from the defibrillator and needles and all this stuff. So we had to clean it up, but we sat on the floor, and we finally said, okay, it's truth time. What happened to you in this house when we were growing up? And so we started to share stories, and we went on for a couple hours. And we just said, oh, you think that was bad? How about this? And how about that? How about this? So, it was, I had PTSD from growing up in a haunted house because it was just so extreme. So that's why I wonder, how did your grandfather cope? Well, he obviously wrote it down.
Yeah, but his experience, I don't think there was nothing frightening at all. He didn't have any frightening experiences. But I mean, people do.
Me, it was so frightening that I ended up.
Sorry, your voice is breaking up. Hello?
She's breaking up pretty bad.
Yes.
Yeah. I can't understand what you're saying. Your voice is breaking up.
Yeah, you probably need to hang up and call back and get a bad connection. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Let me try and bring her back. Are you back, Janet?
Shall I go offline and wait to be called?
No, you're fine. We're fine. It's her connection.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's showing her here. I don't hear her though. But it's showing her here still.
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Yeah, she's in Hawaii and it goes across satellites. So
yeah, where are you?
I'm in Georgia.
Is that a long way from where she is?
Yeah, about 5,000 miles. It said she couldn't pick it up. Let me see. Let it drop from the call here, and then I'll call her back.
Shall I stay online?
Yeah, you're fine. Tell us about what's on all your research. What is the one case that really jumps out at you?
Well, I think my grandfather's experience with the prehistoric horseman. That's mentioned in a lot of books, and I've mentioned it in my book as well. That was, that really is one that really it's become a very famous case. Is she still?
I'm still trying to bring her back in. So that one was one that really got you.
Yes.
You mentioned Skinwalker Ranch. I've talked to quite a few people about Skinwalker Ranch, and a lot of people think it's UFOs, and a lot of people believe it's paranormal. Even the Indians in the neighborhood there says it's paranormal, not aliens.
Would you like to go there?
Oh, I wouldn't mind checking it out personally. I've never had no paranormal experience whatsoever, so
you would like
alien stuff. So,
yeah.
But I do believe that there is things out there that we can't explain. That's definite.
Who owns it now?
Bigelow does.
I thought Bigelow.
He buys anything that he thinks he can capitalize on the research.
But I heard that he sold it.
Now he might have,
He's quite rich, isn't he?
Yes, from my understanding. Yeah. Apparently she's not. I don't know what's going on here. I might have to drop the call. Well, there she goes. We got you, but we can't understand you. You're all broken up.
No, it's still bad.
Yeah, it's bad connection. It might be that we can't even understand what you're saying.
Can she hear you?
I think she said.
No, it's quite a bad connection.
Yeah, she's got a bad connection.
Very bad. I mean, I can hear you as clearly as anything.
Yeah, it's her connection.
Yeah.
She might need to restart. We can reset the call at the top of the hour. We've got about 6 minutes for break.
What is it, for an hour, is it?
Yeah, we've got another hour after this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm easy.
She's trying to figure out what's going on.
Does she know we can't hear her?
Yeah, I'm talking to her. That's why I'm not speaking to you. I can't type and talk at the same time. It don't work. So where can people find your book at?
It's for sale on Amazon.
Yeah.
And
what's the title of it?
Strange Experiences. It's only been on Amazon for about a week, and it's all proving to be very popular. Yeah, it's published by Flying Disc Press, the name of the company that publishing it, but it's on Amazon.
Well, I suggest everybody go check it out. It sounds interesting. The paranormal's always fascinated me. Now, my mother has told me when I was younger that she actually seen a ghost. Now, like I said, I've never experienced anything like that. I have seen Ouija boards kind of do some weird things and stuff like that, but other than that, that's about the extent of my paranormal.
You'd like to see one?
I'm not sure if I'd like to see one or not. Maybe if it was a good spirit, but I sure don't want to deal with no demons or jinn.
That Skinwalker Ranch seems to be a hot spot with activity.
Well, it seems evil too, from my understanding. Everything I've checked out about it, even the Native Americans don't like it.
Yes. I would be quite interested to spend some time there. If I don't suppose I'll ever get the opportunity, but I believe. Yeah.
I doubt I would either, tell you the truth.
I mean, if you were offered the chance, you'd go, would you?
I'd have to do some soul searching first. You know, that's kind of.
But George Napper's been there, hasn't he?
From my understanding, yes, he has.
And experience and things.
Quite a few of the paranormal people have been there, and the UFO people. I've spoken to quite a few of them.
You've spoken to people who've been there?
Oh yeah. I do a show too. I do a couple of shows, and then I produce also. I've been doing this for quite a few years.
It's a fascinating subject, isn't it?
Oh yes, it's one of them ones that they're on the verge of proving the fact that ghosts exist scientifically, but it's still just on the edge. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I believe that's what really most of what's going on today, with Mayan prophecies and that it's the lifting of the veils between the different realms, and we're actually able to understand what's going on. I think science and spirituality are coming together to prove this esoteric.
It's a subject you can. It's what shall I say? From my experience, scientists, if they can't explain something through known laws of science, they dismiss it.
Yeah, well, but the known laws of science are now proving the fact of all these things, are actually not esoteric. They're actually natural things happening.
Yes. I mean, years ago, people used to think that you heard of St. Elmo's fire on top of the ship's mast.
Oh, yeah.
People think that was paranormal, but now that can be explained. And I think perhaps we possibly are getting near to explaining. And I think in my mind, there's no doubt at all that ghosts do exist. And when we leave this world, it's not the end. This life is just a preparation for another existence.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I believe that we're here to learn certain things in order to make it in the next realm. If we don't learn them things, we're destined to return here and try again.
My grandfather once said to me, he said, "Never be afraid of dying, Robert." He said it could be a very interesting experience, which I suppose it could be.
Well, I think it is because, don't you, when you sit down to dinner, you eat your dinner and then you save dessert for last?
Yes.
And that's the best part of the dinner is the dessert.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
We save death for last, though.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you should ever be afraid of dying. I only hope that when I go, it would be painless.
Yeah, it's the way you die.
But anyone could drop dead any age. True?
Oh, definitely.
I mean, there's two things you can't escape: dying and paying taxes.
I'm gonna drop it all at the top of the hour or at the break, and then reset everything and see how that works.
Do you want to call me back, or?
In just a minute. Once the break hits, I'm waiting for break. We got about a minute for a break. So you want to tell everybody about where to get your book again and the title of it real quick?
The book's called Strange Experiences, and my name is Robert Snow, and it's for sale on Amazon.
I'm going to go check it out myself and see what it's about. Like I said, I like the paranormal stuff. I watch quite a few videos on ghosts.
Yeah, I do as well, but it's a fascinating subject. You never get it. You can never get bored with it. That everything is different, isn't it? There are no two experiences the same.
All right, folks, we'll be right back after these messages.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Narco-syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week. Yes. But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting. Yes, I see. By a simple majority in the case of purely internal affairs. Be quiet. But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more... Be quiet. I order you to be quiet. Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look! It's just a flesh wound.
I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, and stupidity.
I'll do you for that. Oh, what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible. You're a loony. The Black Knight always triumphs.
Roundtable Live, Monday through Friday, 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur had nothing on us here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.
Enjoy your extra big-ass fries.
You didn't give me no fries. I got an empty box.
Would you like another extra big-ass fries?
I said I didn't get any.
Thank you. Your account has been charged. Your balance is 0. Please come back when you can afford to make a purchase. No. I'm sorry you're having trouble.
Come on. My kids are starving.
Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio. Here at Revolution Radio, we believe in freedom of ideas, freedom of speech, but above all, we believe in freedom of existence through self-reliance. This station is 100% listener supported, and as a fundraising promotion, I have a kick-ass free gift for a $100 donation. 35,000 seeds. 25 years in the freezer. Long-term storable, 54 different varieties. So if food prices go crazy, the shit hits the fan, or if you just want to save tons of money every year by creating your own food like I do, grab our seed pack special. Just look for the banner on the homepage at freedomslips.com. Don't be a statistic. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution. We need, as humans, to start taking care of ourselves and not depending on the megacorps to provide unhealthy, nasty food. Included in this package is also a DVD with 900 survival and off-grid living documents and the offline home canning how to do everything website all on the DVD. So when you're growing all that food, you know how to can it, store it, preserve it, etc. with all these documents. So thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. I hope that you will pick up this package and start learning to be free. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, where information never sleeps and freedom is one seed that needs to be planted.
What we do in life, it goes in eternity.
Most guys freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
Your body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting to danger, unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Welcome back, folks. I hope you've enjoyed the first half of the show. It's been riddled with technical difficulties. Janet will be right back. Let me see. She just come back online. Let me see if I can add her back into the conversation. I want to remind everybody that we are totally listener supported, so if you got a buck or two, we'd sure appreciate it. Anything would help. Come on down to the chat room, which is at www.revolution.radio, and join in the fun. Everybody's in there talking. I think we got Janet back now.
Oh, at last. I don't know what happened. I think the solar flare just wiped out Hawaii.
It's the ghost.
The ghost. Yeah, I must be dead now. We're all in the dead zone. Oh, well. It's been exciting. So, did you have fun without me? Were you carrying on?
We muddled through.
Muddled through. Yeah, I could hear you talking, but you were like really garbled. So, yeah. Okay, let's keep down those solar flares so we can get through this show. Did you do the commercial break about going over and donating?
Yeah, we're all ready to go, and he's sitting right.
Okay, you know, before we went garbled, and you might have heard me, but I was saying that I was so terrified from that house, because it wasn't just the ghosts that were friendly, but the things that were just beyond, like that poltergeist. That I think probably on a subconscious level, I ended up getting married at 16 just to get out of the house. Because back then you couldn't just move out when you were 16. You had to go to school, and so that's what I did. Go coping mechanism. But Robert, so your what was going on with his poltergeist? Just anything specific?
No, he only had one minor poltergeist activity. He was in his consulting room, which was attached to the house, and he heard a rustling noise, and he looked down, and lots of bits of paper in his waste paper basket were sort of moving about on their own. There was no draft or wind or anything. That's the only poltergeist that he actually had.
Okay, so that wasn't major, but it was freaky.
It was something I put all his everything that he wrote, all his reports on paranormal activity, I've put in the book. Some are fairly minor, others are really quite fascinating. In that house was the house, how long had your family been in that house?
My grandfather purchased it in 1901. My grandfather was born in like the 1870s or something. He was a young man, I guess.
Was the house, was there activity when your grandfather lived there?
I never got to speak to my grandfather personally because he died when my mother was 10. He was much older than my mother's mother.
Yes.
He was like 20 years older than my mother's mother. So he wasn't around. And we didn't talk about it. My mother would get very upset if I tried to talk to her about ghosts. She would get angry. Very strange reaction.
Is the house still haunted? Is it still haunted?
Well, my sister is living there, and we have an agreement to not talk about the haunted house because she doesn't have anywhere else to live. But she's not reporting things. It might have been me as the major catalyst, but when she lived there, remember we were talking about the three of us, we were sharing stories? Well, we were all attacked. She was attacked. My brother had the worst story. He was sleeping in bed, and something came up and grabbed him around the throat. And he kicked it off of him, whatever it was. My sister was stretching across her bed, and she had her head hanging down, and something came onto the bed and strangled her. And then I had never been attacked except for that poltergeist that was zooming around. I'm not sure what would have happened if my mother hadn't come in and stopped it, because there were a lot of dangerous things flying around, like pots and pans and knives.
Did your father, that grandfather was on your father's side, was it?
No, my mother's side.
Did your father ever experience anything?
Like I said, we never talked about it, but I would go up into my parents' bedroom, which was in the back of the house, and I would hear my mother talking to somebody. So I would sneak up, like, who is she talking to? There were no phones up there, no cell phones, no phones. There wasn't anybody out there. And I looked in the room, and she was talking. It looked like she was talking to her mother. And on the far side of the room, it was a transparent image of a woman. Now, I didn't get to meet her mother because she died when I was still in the womb, but I had seen pictures of her, and it resembled the lady that. So I think my mother was having, pure, full daylight visitations with her mother. Something was going on there. My father never mentioned anything because he was so loyal to her mother. He never did anything to upset her. And he knew that she would get upset if we talked about this. So it was like a forbidden subject. It wasn't until I was in my late 30s that my brother and sister and I shared the story. So we don't know what happened. By that time, when we were gathered, because they both got sick, my father had a stroke and my mother had a heart attack, and they both developed dementia. So we could never get the stories out of them. Like, it was so frustrating. It's like, oh my goodness. So, oh well.
Dementia is a very distressing complaint, because my mother had Alzheimer's. I know there are several types of dementia. My mother had Alzheimer's. She went on for about 10 years from the time of diagnosis, which I believe is rather longer than usual. And she ended up in a home, a nursing home, but it's very distressing for the people who see it. I mean,
you lose them. Yeah.
She was happy in her own little world, I think, because they really looked after her well at this home. And I was actually with her when she died in the nursing home. I was there when she died. It's strange. She, I used to go up there rarely to see her, because the nursing home staff knew that I would find it very distressing. So I used to go up. I was her attorney. I used to go up once a month to pay the bill. Sometimes I'd pop in and see her. On one particular morning, Sunday morning, I phoned up the nursing home just to see how she was. And they said, you know, she's going downhill quite rapidly now, but don't come and see her because it would really upset you. So I agreed I wouldn't go there. And then about half an hour after the phone call, I had a very, very strong feeling that I should go and see her. So I got in my car and drove the 15 miles to the nursing home. And when I got there, because my mother was like a cabbage, you know, she lost so much weight, she was so thin. In real life, she was quite a heavily built nurse, chubby lady, but she was like a skeleton. So I went up there, and she was just lying there. And, you know, she didn't look very well. Well, she wasn't well. And I held her hand, and then suddenly she really squeezed it so hard that it really hurt. And she gave a great big smile, and it seemed to me that then she suddenly looked younger. And then she slipped away. I think, because my mother and I were very close, I think that she was dying, but she was communicating with me, and she wanted me there when she passed away. That is my explanation. I'm sure she did, because we were extremely close, my mother and I. Sort of telepathy.
It sounds like she wanted to make sure you knew she'd be all right.
Yes, I think she wanted me there when she passed away to the other side. And then she just stopped breathing, and I rang the bell for one of the nurses to come up. And she said, yes, your mother is dead. But it wasn't a horrible experience. I can only describe it as a very spiritual experience. You know, it wasn't horrible. But, you know, she's now in a better place. Another thing...
For me, I wasn't there when my mother died, but at the moment of her death, I had moved to Hawaii because I was diagnosed with being very sick, and that if I didn't get to a different climate, I wouldn't be around. So I moved to Hawaii, and I was recovering. But my sister and brother were there, and my sister was at the hospital, and they said, oh, you might as well go get something to eat. She could be hanging on for a long time. So she no sooner got down the elevator and walking towards her car, her phone rang. We did have phones. It was 97. We did have phones. And so she ran back up, and she entered the room. And as she walked in the door, my mother was dead. She could see her across the room, and her mouth was open. A lot of people die and their mouth goes open. And the nurse or somebody who was in here said, she's gone. You just missed her. She just died. But as soon as Louise walked in the door, my mother came right up to her right ear and spoke in her ear and said, Louise. So she was out of body, and she spoke into my mother's ear. At the same time, my brother was leaving his apartment. He had a second-floor apartment. He was going down the stairs, and there was a light switch. And it was one of those ones that went kind of up and down. It had a lever. And it went down and up, and the lights went on and off. And he went, oh, Mom just died. And then they both told me these stories, and I suspected something would happen when Mom died, because she was a magical person. She was almost like a witch. And I was just, well, she didn't do anything with me. But 2 days later, I was sleeping, and she came and she took me out of my body astrally. I've been traveling astrally all my life. She took me back to the home I grew up in. My sister had shut the house down and winterized it because it was very cold and drafty. And she put both my parents in an apartment where it was warmer when they were, going through their hospice care. And so nobody had been in the house, and she went down and she said, look, the ghosts are gone. And she said, I'm the one that was holding them here. I'm the catalyst. I was the force that was keeping them here. And she said, they're gone. She was talking really fast. I couldn't quite make it out, but then it was like I recorded it and it made sense later. And she said, you have to go now because I guess I was in a higher vibratory frequency. You have to go now because it's not safe for you to stay in this frequency. And she walked me down the stairs, and she pushed me out through the front door. And so I knew it was astral. And I zoomed all the way across the world and back to my bed in Maui, and I bolted upright and went, like, wow, what a trip, So that's what happened to me.
I had a very strange experience. I was immediately discharged from the army because I broke my spine, and I'm several years later. I had an operation. I wasn't paralyzed or anything, but I had a spinal fusion in 2 places, and lots of rods and screws and plates and things in my spine. And when I came round from the anaesthetic, general anaesthetics are very good these. I don't know if you've had them, have you?
Oh yeah, they've improved a lot.
Yeah, nothing to be afraid of, is there?
No, people used to die before, and now it seems to be a lot better.
Yeah. At any rate, I came round. I was lying on my back in bed, and I had my arms folded across my chest. And next bed to me was a Catholic priest in his clerical vestments. And I thought, this is funny, I thought I saw this priest there, and I was, when people are laid out, they have their arms across their chest.
Right.
Yeah, and I thought, oh God, I've died, and the priest is going to give me last rites.
Wow.
But I didn't, so he just come to visit the patient in the next bed to me. But I thought, I've died and the priest is going to give me last rites.
That must have been some good stuff.
Yeah. What do you think of guardian angels?
Well, have you had any experiences with guardian angels? I have a guardian angel story, but you first, since you're the guest.
I haven't, but it sort of interests me. I mean, I don't think you should dismiss anything. People who don't believe are rather narrow-minded, in my opinion. I mean, there must be something.
Well, I always say I have my guardians because I have a magical life, and even though things seem to go wrong, I get a lot of miracles, So I would say, but I was sick with a gallbladder attack one time, and I was in a lot of pain, and I was very noisy, and they wanted me to shut up, so they gave me something. I found out years later when I talked to an emergency room doctor. He says, well, a lot of times we give people ketamine, and this doctor liked to give people ketamine, and then he'd sit with them, and they would be, they would report all kinds of stuff, that was going on for them. So I didn't know what was going on, but I was all alone. But when I was on this experience with ketamine in the emergency room, and then they put pain stuff and antibiotics in my intravenous, I found myself, my table where I was laying on was in the middle of a room, and there were alcoves all around. And in each alcove was an angel, and they were backlit with the colors of the chakras. And they were just sending me love, and they were saying, we're healing you. And I was looking around, and I said, I don't even believe in angels. They were all around me, and I was going, and I was looking, like staring, and my mouth was open. And this nurse came up, and she probably thought I died or something. I don't know what she was kind of freaked out because I was just staring with my mouth open. And she went, get it. And I went, what? So I know she was reacting to me. Maybe, maybe she saw something or she felt something, but it was quite profound. And, by the next morning, they let me out of the hospital. I was fine. I thought I was going to, they were going to make me have surgery or something, but yeah. But I had a couple other times, but maybe when I was sick, where these beings would come in. One time I had a tooth, they pulled my tooth, and it got all infected, so I had to get emergency to the dentist. And when I got to the dental office, the people that I normally, my dentist and all those people disappeared. And all of a sudden, this man came in that was very, angelic looking, right? And he had these eyes that were they drew you in, and they were big and blue, and they drew you in. And he came over to me, he did this procedure, and I was just awestruck, and he was fixing whatever had gone wrong with my tooth. So there was that one. I was getting a physical one time, and once again, everybody disappeared, and this strange person came in, did a procedure, and then the regular people came back. And it's almost like an abduction, they do the procedure and they blank out everybody else's, and they mind wipe them. And then there was a third one where there was a student at when I was working at Penn State University, and when he came in, everything shifted. When he left, I just ran to the bathroom and I threw water all over me because he was really super high energy. It was like the place had. I don't know, the vibratory frequency was so high. I went into the bathroom and I threw water on me because I was overheated by this person who walked the room. And it was so there was 4 incidents where I thought that I had encounters with guardian angels.
Go ahead. Do they have wings?
Well, the one when I was in the hospital with the gallbladder attack, they had wings. And I was like, oh, come on. You guys can't really have wings. Come on, but they did. And I said, yeah, I guess that's, they have wings. The two that were walking among men and, walking, they did have wings. But they definitely had very high frequency energy. It was so extreme that if anybody else would have been in the room, I don't know if they could take it. The energy was just so high.
I know what I've had gallbladder trouble. I had a gallbladder removed, and the pain is absolutely excruciating.
I mean,
it is. It's said to be one of the most painful things you can have. I mean, if I'd had a gun, I would have shot myself. The pain is so severe. I mean, weren't you doubled up with pain?
Oh, I couldn't move. They couldn't get the what do you call it, the gurney up my stairs because it was too heavy and it was breaking my stairs. So they had me walk down. I'm in this excruciating pain. I had to walk down to the cement, and to help with the pain, I was screaming. I was going ah ah. I would breathe in. I did this long exhale and a scream, and I did that all the way down in the ambulance because. My husband teaches yoga, and he says if you want to really help the scream, if you want to help your pain, you give it a sound. And it did seem to alleviate it. But every time I got to the end of the exhale, I said, I'm going to die now. And what's it going to be like when I die? And then I would say, why am I not dead? How much pain can a human body take without the soul leaping out of it and escaping? I was amazed that I was still alive.
But it's terrible. It's undescribable. It's really the most. I can't imagine anything. Well, it's said to be the most painful thing going.
Yeah, it's supposed to be worse than childbirth.
Another thing. Last year, I had a kidney removed, cancer of the kidney. And after the operation, I was in terrible pain. But I had morphine, liquid morphine, which is good stuff,
Right.
But
yeah. So anyway, it's interesting what we go through, but. A mad painter, have you had any experiences with ghosts or angels or anything like that?
None at all. I wouldn't mind a few. That'd be fine.
Come on now, visit the man. He wants to experience some paranormal experiences.
I'm not doubting Thomas like in the Bible or.
Right.
I believe without no proof, that these things do exist, and I don't need any proof. I guess that's why I've never had to see anything.
Yeah, but there's no doubt they do happen.
They do.
Ghosts are very, very real. I
would invite my friends over to sleep over when I was a kid. I'd say, "You want to see a ghost?" And they'd say, "I don't believe in ghosts." "Come on, you want to see a ghost?" "Okay." So I'd say, "Ask your mother if you can sleep over." So they'd sleep over, and they would see things all the time. There was a couple that didn't, but I think it's a lot of is a person receptive, or are they open-minded? If you're really closed-minded, you might never see anything. You won't see UFOs, and you're just not going to see if they step on top of you. You won't see it.
Yeah, it's true, but there are people who've absolute non-believers who've had experience completely changed their mind.
So do you know anybody that didn't believe and then they saw something and it completely changed your mind, or do you have these stories? Go ahead and give us one. Go ahead.
No, I've heard of people who don't believe in ghosts, but when they have an experience, they completely change their mind. There's no doubt that these things happen. There's so much evidence, isn't there?
So you're collecting stories from around the world, or are you just focusing on a certain part of the world?
All over the place, but most of my materials from this country.
Right.
But there was an experience my grandfather had. As I told you, he was a very keen amateur archaeologist. He went with a friend to France, and he went to look round a particular church, and you were able to go up the tower and have to admire the view. So it was a bright sunny day, I'm not sure exactly when this was. A bright sunny day, and when they got up to the top of the tower, they looked down and they saw themselves approaching the church. They saw their doubles, their doppelgangers.
I've heard about that. So what did they do when they saw themselves?
Well, they didn't do anything. They just, when they went downstairs, down the bottom of the tower, they weren't the apparitions obviously weren't there. They saw watched the apparitions walk into the church. In fact, I believe really there are probably more ghosts of the living than there are of the dead seen.
Yeah, so what is that? What's your theory on that? Are we projecting, are people seeing our astral form when we're traveling out of body?
Yeah, I think so, out of body. I mean, like my friend Anatoly, that phone call from Anatoly, you know, my Russian friend. I told you
yes.
that. When he described my bedroom exactly in the finest detail, that is obviously indisputable proof that he had an out-of-body experience.
Yeah, the same thing happened to Stan Groff. Stan Groff was, he developed holotropic breath work, and he traveled astrally, and he said his brother said, I saw you come through the television in Poland, or it was Czechoslovakia. So his brother saw him in broad daylight, and he said that he, same thing, he described his brother's house. He'd never been there, and he described it to the T. So, yeah. Well, the Monroe Institute, Robert Monroe, he talked about astrally traveling, and different people would see him and he'd see them, and they would, correlate their information and verify, just like your experience with Anatoly. So that's been documented a lot. Let's see, what else? What other paranormal things did your grandfather cover?
Oh, all sorts. Some of them were very minor things, but I think, a lot of minor things add up to something quite spectacular. A lot of telepathic experiences. And I put all those in the book.
What are some of the telepathic things that stand out in your mind?
I think that the telephone ringing. Obviously, the person was trying to desperately get through to my grandfather, and he sort of picked up some form of telepathic waves, I suppose.
Right. And then your mother contacted you, so you would be there at her crossing.
Yes. When my mother... When my mum died, that's another experience. I mean, as I said before, we did everything together. Mum and I were very close, and she knew she was going to die, but she didn't want to go without me being there. She hung on until I arrived. That's my explanation. She was trying to communicate with me.
Yeah, get here. I want to say goodbye. Yeah, and you responded, even though they said don't come.
Even when I held her hand, because being suffering from Alzheimer's, she was just a living skeleton, really. She was so thin. And when she squeezed my hand till it really hurt, she seemed to, before she went, to have some sort of extra superhuman strength. I mean, she was so weak, but that time and then she gave a big smile, and tears rolled down her cheeks, a big smile, and then she stopped breathing. It was a very spiritual experience. I'm so pleased I was there when she died, or when she passed away to the other side. You know, there's nothing, I don't think there's, you know, those experiences that I shall remember all my life.
Right.
Nothing horrible, but the paranormal is such a fascinating subject.
Yes, it is.
I think it was Shakespeare said, may not have been Shakespeare, but somebody said, the paranormal is a veil through which we cannot see. It's a door which we do not have the key for. But I think.
So, do you think we'll ever figure this one out as a human species and be able to communicate with the dead?
I think we will. We're getting closer, but I think perhaps there are some things that we're not meant to know, and we'll never know. I think when more research has been done into the paranormal, the result of the research will be that the paranormal really exists. Spirits exist, and when we die, we don't just leave this world. There is another sort of wavelength, another realm, another plane that we go on. I'm pretty sure that's what the result will be. I mean, nobody can disprove ghosts exist. Nobody.
Right.
They do exist. There's so much evidence, indisputable evidence. And
does your grandfather get any messages from the other side? Does he ever report?
No.
Did he ever see any animals from the other side? Well, he saw the horse.
Yeah, the horse.
Or the horse.
Oh yeah, he had one or two other where he saw horses, Phantom Army, and things like that, and that's all in the book. I can't remember the exact details because to be honest, it's a long time since I read through all his archives.
Right.
I mean, I'm always adding. If I see an article in a paper, a magazine, I'll copy it word for word and keep it on my computer for my own information. Or if I find something on the internet, I would copy it and paste it into a Word document. I've got many thousands of articles. Some articles you see on the internet are rubbish, as you probably know. There is a lot of rubbish on the internet, but there's also a lot of very good material.
Yes, there is. Are you familiar with the Dr. Michael Newton Institute work?
No.
Okay, Dr. Michael Newton, he's retired, but he had over 40 years, 40,000 regressions, and he trained hundreds, if not thousands, of regressionists, and so they were regressing people from various cultures all over the world. And they would regress people using a special technique where they would go to not just past life, but to life between life, where you go after you die. And they were documenting a reality that seemed to be pretty consistent, based on testimonials, 40,000 case studies, where when you die, You're met by your guides. Each person has a personal guide, so you have one guide, at least one guide. But you're taken to your committee, and the committee, you go through a life review with your committee. You analyze everything you learned and what you could have done better. And then you go to your group. So you know how they say we have soul groups? Well, apparently we have soul groups, and they're between 10 and about 30-some people in our soul groups. And you deconstruct and correlate and analyze what just happened in the life you just lived. What was that like? You have those who, like, say you had enemies or people you didn't like or harm you did to each other. So the ones that harmed you and that you harmed, they come before you and you talk about what you just experienced. Sometimes you do, which is like a Vulcan mind meld, but you literally merge together, like physically, although you're not physically, spiritually, you merge together, and then you separate, and you really get what it was like to be the person that was receiving you, and your actions and perceiving you. So you get what it was like to be the other person, and you get what it was like for them, vice versa, right? So anyway, it's a fascinating series of books, and since you're into the research, I highly recommend the Dr. Michael Newton Institute research information, and they have a series of YouTubes as well. But since you've analyzed and read all these stories and you keep collecting them, what are some of the things you are able to conclude? What are some of your observations?
I'd like to find out more about remote viewing, but as I said, I'm in touch with this Viktor Fefilov of Tomsk in Siberia, North Russia, and I talk from time to time with his son, a three-way conversation, his son acting as an interpreter. But I think that he's involved in remote viewing research, but the Russians are I think they're rather advanced.
If you're interested in remote viewing, you should check out Courtney Brown at the Fireside Institute. They do it all scientifically.
Yeah, I've looked on this. Also, there are some there's some videos of him talking, or podcasts of him talking on the internet. It's very, very interesting.
Yeah, he's an awesome guy. I've talked to him a few times.
And it does work, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I think, but the Russians are, I know they're very, very advanced with their paranormal research. But as I said before, I go out there sometimes and I've got to know a lot of people, and I never have to stay in a hotel. And they all say, come and stay with us. And they really treat me so they're killed with kindness. But you can't judge a country by its leaders, can you?
I guess not. That's true.
Thank God for the internet, eh?
Yeah, you get good and bad everywhere. I mean, in this country, UK, there are some shysters, and some of them are called politicians.
I think we have that phenomena everywhere. Yeah. I like the Russians. My husband's third generation Russian, but both sides of his family, although I didn't get to know his family very well, but they're all Russian.
I got to know a couple of very rich businessmen, and they're so kind. And one of them, the Christmas before last, sent me as a present a genuine, I'd say genuine, brand new Omega wristwatch. And that's nice, isn't it?
What kind of wristwatch?
Omega.
Yeah. Oh, Omega, yeah.
I mean, that is nice. But, they're good and bad people everywhere. The only thing In Russia, I will say it gets extremely cold in the winter. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a friend in a place called Yakutsk in Siberia, northern Russia, and in the winter, even with global warming, it goes down to 60 below, and that is cold.
Oh, God. I would never go there.
No.
Not going to see me there.
I've been in Moscow in the winter myself. I've been in Moscow, and that goes sort of about minus 38, 40, which is quite cold. But it's, with the right clothing, you're all right. I've got good thermal underwear and one of those fur hats called Yushenka. And you need it out there. They're made of rabbit fur. You certainly need it.
I like it right here in Georgia, and I'm sure that Janet likes it there in Hawaii.
It was cold this winter. It finally has warmed up, but we had winter until about 3 days ago.
Yeah,
it was really cold.
We got the air conditioner running right now.
Yeah, we have all the fans going, so it's warmed up. But
you're about, did you say about 5,000 miles apart?
Yeah, we're I'm in Maui, Hawaii, and
we're
Dad
spending
is
half
over
the globe right now.
You're what?
Yeah. All three of us. We're from three. We're across two oceans. You're in the UK, and I'm in Maui.
You're where?
Maui, Hawaii.
Is that nice and warm?
Very nice and warm. Yes, I love it. Yeah. But I did my ancestry, and I'm mostly from UK. It's genetics. My ancestors came from UK. Wonder if we're related. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know how far I'd be from you. I'm the southwest of England. 4,000 or 5,000 miles from you.
You're probably 3,000 miles from me, and she's probably about 5,000 from me. So she's probably about 8,000 miles from.
Yes, technology is all right, but it works, isn't it?
Isn't it amazing?
That's why we're saying we're spanning half the globe right now, believe it or not.
Yeah, and I can hear you both as clearly as anything, and you can both hear me.
Yes. Isn't that amazing?
It's all done.
I couldn't do this.
Either.
What's it all done with satellites, I suppose?
Most of it, yeah.
Some of it's still undersea cables, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe me and you are connected through undersea cables, but Janet has to go through the satellite.
You can both hear me perfectly.
Yes, perfectly well. Yes.
Now you've got rid of
earlier.
Now you've got rid of your technical hitches.
Whatever that was.
That happens sometimes with Hawaii. They'll get overwhelmed with people on the internet, and they start kicking people or start making it garbled. They lose.
I see.
Your what do they call it? Your bandwidth.
Yeah.
Bandwidth.
Yeah, so they can squeeze more people
sense.
onto it.
Well, they used to, before we had the cell phones, I came here in 93, if you tried to call back to the mainland at Christmas or New Year's, you couldn't get a line.
No.
Get a line out. They only had so many lines. I guess it was cable in those days under the ocean.
I mean, about 30 years ago or more, who would have thought you'd have a telephone you'd carry in your pocket? Mine's the size of a pocket diary. I've got a Samsung S7.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, I was listening to somebody. They said that we had the bricks, and it looked like it was going to be another 20 or 30 years to go from those bricks. Remember how big they were? Like a big walkie-talkie.
heavy.
But something happened with Apple, and it has to do. It was on NPR with the mines in. There's one country in Africa that has the minerals for the lithium batteries or something. So it was the invention of the lithium battery that allowed them to go from these huge bricks down to the iPhone, and then the iPhone launched this new generation of phones. Everybody started coughing at technology, but there's something else coming out soon, and I don't know much about it. I didn't quite get the whole story. That's going to because there's only so much lithium, so they're going to run out of that, or they are going to. They're somehow negotiating to get these contracts so that they can't charge exorbitant prices for this one mine in Africa or something. There's one country in Africa. I don't know. It's worth researching, but that's part of the UFO story. Phil Corso Jr., he describes how he reverse engineered the technology for the Roswell crash, and the computers were the size of a room. Remember back in the 40s, they were a giant room, and they knew that they could make them smaller. They had the concept, but they were lacking the transistors. So apparently in the Roswell crash, they got the technology to reverse engineer and start making computers down to, like you'd have one on your desktop. So we've seen a lot of changes in our life. So just imagine what's coming.
Yeah, I think they're always improving on things. They're improving on batteries all the time. Now, are these, so I'm open-minded, but some people think that aliens are on this earth and that the governments are sort of hiding them. Have you heard that?
There's all kinds of theories. Amad, do you want to chime in on this one?
Oh, I believe they're here. I believe they influence our governments, and
look at Area 51. You heard of it?
Yeah. So
it's still, but I think that's just so to keep their attention there instead of exactly where they're doing what they're doing.
You mean diversion?
Oh, yes, I believe it's diversion. Just about anything out there that you see in the mainstream and they talk about is usually some kind of diversion to keep you from actually paying attention to what you need to.
So they're not really doing much at Area 51. They
probably not. Just enough to make you go, what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, in this country, we've got an establishment at a place called Porton Down. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's a government research establishment, and it's top secret. And it's probably our equivalent to your Area 51.
Right. Well, they have Pine Gap in Australia. So these areas, they've been established. They're underground. Some of them are very deep. They could be, 13 floors down or more. They have, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. But, if they get discovered, they just move it elsewhere, or they, like you said, they divert things. So I think if Area 51 was used a lot more back in the day, but
yeah, I believe it was
used.
I believe it was used in the 50s and the 60s for that kind of stuff. But I think they've moved it since then. That
you think
keep it hush hush. We got about 2 minutes, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Aliens do exist on Earth.
I don't doubt it. I've seen too many things that if they now what you consider aliens, they could be from inner Earth or extra dimensional. See.
Yes.
So we just don't know. I mean, ghosts are interdimensional.
Yeah.
So who's to say there's not other dimensions out there that we can't step across?
That's true.
Right.
I mean, just because you can't explain things, you shouldn't dismiss them.
Exactly. Yes. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your book and where might somebody go to purchase it?
Yeah, the book
and you have a website.
It's called Strange Experiences, and it's for sale on Amazon. And if you type in under books, put in Robert Snow, you will see it. It's not a big book, but it's I've got one review, which is somebody has reviewed it. I mean, often people buy books on Amazon, they don't leave reviews, but I've got a stunning review, which I think will, which I'm very pleased.
That's good to get good reviews. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, but it's a very long review, and I'm very pleased. I think it's an excellent review, and the person I know the person who reviewed it, and he's a very critical person. He wouldn't write a good review if the book wasn't good. You know, he's very fussy, very critical. If something he didn't like something, he'd say so. And I've had nothing but praise from him.
Well, thank you very much, Robert Snow. Thank you, Mad Painter, Thomas Becker.
It's a pleasure.
Blessings. Pleasure. Hello.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message. Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. Any commercial advertising you may hear in this program is of the sole discretion and benefit of the host of whose program you are listening to. Revolution Radio does not endorse any commercial products, nor does it accept monetary compensation for on-air advertising of commercial products, nor will it ever. We are and shall remain 100% listener supported. Any product advertising on this program are considered used at buyer risk, and Revolution Radio shall not be held liable for any claims or damages received from any product advertised within this program. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Most guys freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
The body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting to danger. Unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution. Radio.
Take a look around, kid. What do you see? Homes being foreclosed. People working 2-3 jobs just to put food on the table and still drowning in debt. Don't get me wrong. It's country was founded on great ideals and principles. They've all been ruined by the banks. Open your eyes to the banks that are robbing you. You know who my favorite president was? Who? Thomas Jefferson. Because he saw all of this coming and tried to stop it. He fought the banks. JFK too, and they killed him for it. The banking institution is more dangerous than an army, he said.
Welcome to the Total Wireless Store, where total confidence awaits.
I am done dealing with data overages.
Don't worry, you got this at the Total Wireless Store. Bring your number and get 15 gigs of data for $50 on the nation's best 4G LTE network. And during our 50% more data promotion, you'll actually get 22.5 gigs for the same price.
22.5 for 50? That's a gig deal.
Data it is.
Discover the Total Wireless Stores and get total confidence. The latest phones, the best network, all at great prices. Ends January 2nd, 2019. Excludes ports from TracFone Wireless Inc. brands. Terms at TotalWireless.com.